I'll attempt to make this heart dress using a simple bodice and a half-circle skirt. I've made this prototype of the dress already. We'll need a bodice pattern, a skirt pattern and a heart shape. I use free Talia Dress by Goober Pea Designs and generated a half-circle skirt by Apostrophe Patterns to the size of the bodice bottom, -4 seam allowances. I've drawn a few hearts for you and will show one of the ways if you'd like to make a heart yourself. First, pull the guide out of the vertical ruler on the right side. We'll create half of the shape and then mirror the copy. Switch to the Bezier tool or press B and add 2 nodes on the guide and 1 to the side from it. Press Enter to finalize the path. I'll leave a file with hearts and a mockup in the description. Switch to the node tool or press N and pull the short side of the triangle up to curve it. Note that 2 of the 3 nodes are selected now. They are blue and look bigger. After you've finished with the curve, click aside to remove selection, and then click the right node to select it. We are going to change it to be a smooth node. Use the Make Selected Noded Smooth button on the panel. You can also click the node once with Control pressed. Move the node around to create a desired shape. You can make a lot of different hearts this way. But still the bottom stays sharp and we could make it softer. Remove selection from the nodes by clicking aside, then hold Shift and pull the bottom node to the right and slightly up. What we did is pull the handle out of the node to curve the line. I pull the handles of the right node too to adjust the shape. Once you are satisfied with the half of the heart, switch to the Select tool or press S. Duplicate the shape with Ctrl D and mirror the copy horizontally by pressing H or using the corresponding button on the panel. Pull the copy to snap in place with the other half. Path Union to make the heart whole. Pull the corner arrows with Shift and Ctrl press to scale the shape proportionately. I'll use this heart on the right, so I duplicate it and pull the copy aside. I also pull the copy of the bodice front and one of the skirts. The front bodice is in 2 halves, so I select both with Shift and Path, Combine. You can use Union too, but I like to keep the center line intact. If your bodice is on fold, make it whole like we did with the heart. We need the skirt upright. Click 2 times to get the rotation handles in the corners. Hold Ctrl and pull one of the corners. It will turn in 15 degrees increments so the skirt won't end skewed. I'll color the bodice and the skirt green for better visibility, and we probably want them colored differently from the heart anyway. Pull another copy of the heart over the skirt. We want the heart centered in the opening, and we can scale it to fit, but don't scale the skirt. The pattern pieces should remain size true. I made the height of the heart distributed evenly between the skirt and the bodice, but that's an artistic choice. I also like for the heart to take about 1/3 of the bodice height. You can see me lowering the opacity of the heart to see underneath. Menu Objects is the panel that shows the objects list, and an opacity slider for the select object is on the bottom. Once the heart is in place, we'll cut it from the skirt. Make sure you have a spare copy of the heart. Select both the skirt and the heart and path difference. Now we need the seam allowance for the skirt opening. I do it my usual way. Duplicate the skirt, send the copy to the bottom, or press End, change the fill color and path, outset. I do it twice since my outset is set to 3 mm now. Now we have the seam allowance all around the skirt. We'll cut it from everywhere except for the opening. Grab the Bezier tool. We need to create a path that covers all the seam allowance we want cut. You only need to be precise in the 2 corners. In fact, we could cover only the part we want to keep and use intersection instead of difference, but I haven't thought about it at the time. With new object selected, hold Shift and click the orange seam allowance line to add it to the selection. Then Path Difference to cut the big object from the seam allowance. Apparently I've cut the different corners, so I make another paths to cut the extra off. I use a shortcut Ctrl- for the difference this time. I duplicate the heart and add the seam allowance to it the same way. Now pull the bodice exactly above the skirt. Take another duplicate of the heart and pull it over the bodice. It won't take all the width like in the mockup. I guess that's expectation versus reality, but it's close. To only move the object along one axis, hold Control while moving. Position the heart along the sewing line, not the seam allowance line. That's how it should look now. Add the bodice to the selection and path difference to make a bodice cutout. Now we need the seam allowance along the cut. I added exactly the same way, so I'll speed up this part. If you need to move the bodice away to have more space, remember to move with Control not to lose the alignment with the skirt. Caught the wrong corner again? I fixed the sharp corner of the seam allowance. We can cut it off with another object or manipulate nodes. I show nodes manipulation, but honestly cutting it off about one seam allowance from the corner is faster. At this point I select each pattern piece in the seam allowance piece and group them together with Ctrl-G for convenience. After that, put the heart group over the bodice and the skirt aligning the seam lines. The result looks like it would never be sewn together, but it will. Trust me, I've sewn this before. I'm glad I'd made that prototype first because I learned at least two things out of that experience. First, I have forgotten to add notches to align that extremely curved seam. Don't make your life harder than it has to be and add them. I use short paths with fat strokes as my notches. $10px should be enough. Notches don't have to be symmetrical on both sides, so I just eyeball their placement. I duplicate, mirror and rotate to change their positions. We do want them perpendicular to the seam line. I could have done that part better. We need each of them on two pattern pieces, so after I place them all, I select them all and duplicate. Just to show off, I select one and then edit, select same, fill and stroke, but it's a useful technique to know. Then I put the notches on the skirt side too, select all the notches again, duplicate them again, then select the heart and each notch once and group them together with Ctrl-G. After that you can just pull the heart with the notches away. Group the remaining notches with their corresponding pattern pieces. The second thing I've learned is that we added length to the skirt front with the heart color blocking, so it's now longer in front. With bias skirts it's hard to tell exactly how much, so you might wish to sew the dress as is, let it hang for a while, and then take care of the hem. But I'll show you how to shorten the skirt if you'd rather do it now. Take the second skirt piece and rotate it upright. Overlap it with the skirt front and lower the opacity to see through it. With measurement tool or press M, measure the vertical distance between the top of the front and the back. Hold Control to move vertically only. Then I remove the seam allowance from that measurement and shorten the front by that amount. Measure from the center of the skirt bottom up, and then pull the guide from the top ruler through that spot. Move the back skirt aside. I duplicate the front for the safekeeping, color it differently and switch to the node tool. Grab the skirt hem in the center. It can be hard with all the guides around, so zoom in and try to grab the very edge. Pull it up to the measured spot. I'll play a round of fabric Tetris here, but I have a separate video about that, so it's sped up a lot.